Neria Kalu apologized before the files even hit the floor. That was what Cha Eon-gyu would remember later. Not the sound of the folders bursting open across the marble. Not the way contracts slid under the conference table like frightened white birds. Not the irritated sighs from executives whose suits cost more than her monthly rent. Not even the way she clutched one hand beneath her pregnant belly as she tried to bend. It was the apology. "I'm sorry, sir," she whispered. "I know I'm slow." The office went still for only half a second before annoyance returned. Dowa Marine Group's executive floor was not built for weakness. It was built for speed, money, precision, and fear dressed as professionalism. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Busan's marine city skyline, the ocean flashing blue-gold beyond the glass. Gwangan Bridge stretched in the distance like a silver blade under afternoon sunlight. Marble floors gleamed beneath designer furniture. Screens displayed port traffic, shipping rates, acquisition projections, and private security movement across Asia. Everything in that office moved efficiently. Except Neria. That was what people said. She was the slow one. The clumsy one. The secretary who dropped things, arrived breathless, apologized too much, and moved through the executive floor as if the air itself resisted her. Cha Eon-gyu had heard the complaints, but had never paid attention. He employed thousands. He controlled ports, warehouses, offshore storage, private security, luxury hotels, and shipping corridors men had killed to access. He did not personally investigate every weak link unless that weakness cost him money. That afternoon, the weakness stood in front of him. Neria had entered his office 7 minutes late with an armful of acquisition files for the Houndie Port expansion meeting. 7 minutes was nothing in ordinary offices. In Eon-gyu's world, 7 minutes could shift a negotiation, alert a rival, or turn an advantage into an apology. He looked up from behind his executive desk, his black suit immaculate, his expression mild in a way that made employees more afraid than anger would have. "Why are the files late?" Neria stopped near the conference table. Her curls were tied neatly back. Her cream blazer stretched gently over the visible curve of her pregnancy. Her fitted maternity dress was elegant, but worn at the sleeve from too much use. Her face was beautiful in a tired way, caramel skin glowing beneath the office light, hazel brown eyes lowered because she had learned that eye contact could be mistaken for attitude. "I'm sorry, Chairman Cha," she said quickly. "The elevator access delayed me. I should have left earlier." Someone near the side wall exhaled through his nose. A junior executive smirked. Another employee whispered, "Again." Neria heard it. Eon-gyu saw that she heard it. Still, he remained cold. "Bring them here." She stepped forward too quickly. That was when the first folder slipped. She tried to catch it, shifted her weight, and the entire stack collapsed from her arms. Papers scattered across the marble. A signed draft slid beneath Eon-gyu's desk. A blue medical folder fell open near his shoe. The room reacted before he did. A vice director clicked his tongue. Someone covered a laugh with a cough. Neria immediately crouched, but her body resisted the movement. One hand braced against the table. The other pressed instinctively beneath her belly. "I'm sorry," she said again, breath trembling. "I'm so sorry. I'll fix it." "Leave it," Eon-gyu said. She did not. She kept reaching for the papers, face tight with embarrassment and pain. Her fingers shook as she gathered contracts into messy piles. Eon-gyu rose from his chair. The room quieted. He was a tall man, handsome in a severe way, early 40s, sharp jaw, controlled mouth, eyes that could make loyal men confess mistakes before being asked. He had built Dowa Marine into a legitimate giant and an invisible kingdom. Everyone on that floor knew what he was, even if no one said the uglier words aloud. Korean Mafia boss. Port king. A man whose signature could move cargo, debt, police attention, or bodies. Neria finally gathered the last visible file and stood. Too slowly. Eon-gyu noticed this time. Not because she was slow. Because standing cost her. Her lips pressed together. Her left hand gripped the edge of the conference table. One heel lifted slightly, as if one leg could not bear the floor. She tried to hide it by turning quickly toward the door. And then he saw the limp. There was no mistaking it. Not clumsiness. Not laziness. Not poor posture.
Pain.
A careful dragging of one leg. A protective shift of weight. The practiced movement of someone who had been hurting long enough to disguise suffering as inconvenience. The whole office saw him see it. Employees stopped breathing. Yeonggyu's gaze lowered to her feet, then to her hand beneath her belly, then to the medical folder still open beside his desk. A name stared up from the paper. Jean Waram. The room vanished. 7 months earlier, Jean Waram had been behind the wheel of Yeonggyu's car when the ambush happened near the old container road. A truck came through the rain with its headlights off. Waram saw it before the guards did. He swerved, turned the impact away from the rear passenger side, and took the collision into his own door. Yeonggyu lived. Waram did not. At the memorial, Yeonggyu had stood before Waram's portrait and given an order so clear he thought no one would dare misunderstand it. His family is mine now. Compensation.
Housing.
Medical care. Protection. Direct oversight. And now a pregnant black woman stood in his executive office wearing a staff badge, apologizing for being slow, while limping on a leg no one had helped. Yeonggyu looked at her. What is your name? Neria froze. Neria Kalu, sir. The room became thinner. His voice lowered. Kalu. She swallowed. Jean Waram was my husband. A small sound moved through the office. Not sympathy.
Fear.
Because everyone knew that name. Yeonggyu did not move for several seconds. Then he looked at the executives, assistants, and managers gathered around the office. He looked at their polished shoes, their stiff faces, their sudden interest in the floor. His next words were quiet enough to terrify them. Which one of you decided my debt to a dead man should become clerical work for his pregnant wife? No one answered. Neria's eyes filled instantly, but she blinked hard, still trying to remain professional, still trying not to become more inconvenient than she had already been trained to believe she was. I'm sorry, Chairman Cha, she whispered. I didn't mean to disrupt the meeting. Yeonggyu turned back to her. For the first time, his face changed.
Not softness, exactly.
Something harsher. Guilt recognizing itself too late. You are done apologizing, he said. And the entire floor understood that something had just broken open. Before anyone called her slow, Neria had been a woman who moved quickly. She had moved quickly through crowded docks with translation folders under one arm, switching between English, Korean, and French for a humanitarian shipping NGO that moved medical equipment, rice, generators, and emergency tents into places where official systems arrived too late. She met Jean Waram during a typhoon relief shipment in Busan. He was not supposed to smile at her. That was the first thing she noticed. He stood near a black company vehicle, broad-shouldered, quiet, rain beating on his jacket, watching the loading bay with the patient focus of a man trained to notice danger before it announced itself. His job was security coordination for Doha Marine's private logistics division. Her job was to make sure donated medical equipment did not get trapped in customs because 3 agencies disagreed over paperwork. They argued over a missing seal, then over a truck route, then over whether she was standing too close to a forklift lane. You worry too much, she told him. You stand in unsafe places too comfortably, he replied. You always this charming?
No.
That made her laugh. He looked startled by the sound. After that, he kept appearing where she worked. Not obviously. Never in a way that embarrassed her. He brought coffee during night shipments. Fixed a broken handle on her rolling case. Walked beside her when dock workers got too loud. He never tried to impress her with money, danger, or connections. That was why she trusted him. Waram was not soft to the world, but he was gentle with her. They married privately 18 months later in a small civil ceremony with 2 witnesses, 1 bouquet of white chrysanthemums, and a dinner so simple Neria teased him about calling convenience store seaweed rolls a wedding feast. He promised her a real ceremony later. She promised him she would pretend to believe him. When she became pregnant, he cried before she did. Not loudly. Waram did nothing loudly. He simply sat on the edge of their bed holding the test in both hands, looking at it like it was a holy document. We need a bigger apartment, he said. Neria laughed through tears. That is your first thought? My first thought is that I am terrified. And the second? That I need to live differently. He never had time. 3 weeks later, he died saving Cha Eon-gyu. At the memorial, Neria stood near the back because no one seemed to know where to place her. Wife, but foreign. Pregnant, but not yet visibly. Family, but not registered into the company's neat categories. Grieving, but surrounded by men who treated grief as a private weakness. Eon-gyu stood before Woram's portrait and spoke with a voice carved from stone. Jean Woram protected my life with his own.
His family is mine now.
Whatever they require, provide it.
No delay. No excuses.
Neria believed him. That was the last easy mistake she made. A week later, HR Director Yeom De-kyung called her into a glass office with soft chairs and no warmth. De-kyung was elegant, with perfect hair, expensive perfume, and a smile that looked professionally assembled. Mrs. Jean, she said, though her eyes remained on the file, your situation is being reviewed. My situation? Compensation, housing, medical support, survivor benefits. There are administrative complications. Neria held both hands over her still flat stomach. Chairman Cha said, yes, of course. Chairman Cha gave broad instructions, but implementation must follow procedure. Procedure became the word that swallowed everything. Her marriage documents required verification because they had been registered partly through foreign channels. Woram's security contract involved sensitive classifications. The death benefit needed board-level clearance. The housing allowance required tax review. Medical support required proper dependent documentation. Everything was almost approved. Nothing arrived. Then De-kyung offered a solution. A temporary administrative role, she said gently. It keeps you within the company system, preserves medical coverage access, and demonstrates cooperation while your claim is reviewed. Neria was grieving, pregnant, and alone in a country where every form seemed to require another form. She accepted. At first, it seemed like help. Then the tasks multiplied. Deliver archived files. Prepare executive packets. Run documents between floors. Assist departments that treated her like borrowed equipment. When she asked about maternity accommodations, De-kyung smiled. Of course. Submit the form. Neria submitted it. It vanished. She submitted again. Pending. Again. Under review. Then her elevator card stopped allowing access to certain executive floors. When she complained, HR told her it was a security clearance update, so she used the stairs. At 5 months pregnant, carrying 2 archive boxes from the records floor, she slipped on the emergency stairwell landing. The pain tore through her hip and down her leg, so sharply she could not breathe. For a while, she just lay there, one hand on her belly, whispering, please,
Please.
please. No one came for 6 minutes. The company physician, Dr. Song Harim, examined her and said she needed rest, physical therapy, and elevator accommodation immediately. De-kyung classified it as non-work-related instability. Pregnancy affects balance, she explained. We must be careful not to overstate liability. After that, the whispers began.
Clumsy.
Slow. Always struggling. Maybe she wanted attention. Maybe she used pregnancy as an excuse. Neria kept working because stopping meant losing the medical coverage tied to the temporary role. Stopping meant risking the benefit claim. Stopping meant raising a child with nothing but Woram's photograph and promises from men too powerful to remember ordinary people after funerals ended. At night, she sat on the edge of her bed and massaged her aching leg until tears fell silently onto her dress. She would touch her belly and whisper, "Your father saved a powerful man. I just need that powerful man to remember us." But powerful men did not remember unless truth walked into their office and dropped files at their feet. And Neria had been apologizing so long, she had almost forgotten she was owed more than patience. Kong Pyong-ho heard about the incident before Neria reached the clinic. That was the thing about executive floors. Bad news climbed faster than elevators. He stood in his private office overlooking Busan Harbor, one hand around a porcelain coffee cup, listening as Yeom De-kyung spoke through the phone with controlled panic. He saw her limp, De-kyung said. Pyong-ho closed his eyes. For 3 seconds he said nothing. He was Eon-gyu's older cousin, chief operations director, and the kind of man who wore family loyalty like a medal while using company accounts like a private garden. Broad-faced, handsome in an aging way, always well-dressed, always laughing one moment too late. People liked him because they thought warmth meant honesty. He had learned long ago that warmth was the cheapest disguise. How much did he hear? Pyong-ho asked. She identified herself
As
Neria Kalu, Jean Worm's wife. The coffee cup lowered slowly. Outside, cranes moved along the harbor. Ships shifted containers. Money traveled. Secrets stayed hidden when systems worked. Neria had become a system error. De Kyung continued. He asked the entire office who turned his debt into clerical work. Pyong-ho swore under his breath. Worm's compensation file was not merely delayed. It was carved apart. A portion routed to a fake widow support fund. Another disguised as security subcontractor risk fees. Another held in pending status while interest moved through a side account tied to a shell vendor in Kaohsiung. It had been easy because dead men did not audit. Widows without powerful relatives did not sue. Foreign widows with pregnancy complications and incomplete Korean paperwork apologized instead of demanding answers. That was what they had counted on. De Kyung said, "We can still frame this as administrative confusion." Pyong-ho laughed once. "Do not insult me." She exaggerates. Pregnant employees become emotional. We can move her to a satellite office, recommend unpaid medical leave, maybe encourage settlement. Stop speaking like HR policy can shield us from Cha Eong-gyu. De Kyung went silent. Pyong-ho walked to the window. Below, Doha Marine's headquarters gleamed like honest money. He had helped build that illusion. He was proud of it. But Eong-gyu had one weakness that made him unpredictable: loyalty to dead men. Woram had not been just a driver. He had been the man whose split-second decision kept Eong-gyu alive. And Pyong-ho had stolen from his widow. That was not a financial irregularity. That was sacrilege in Eong-gyu's private religion. "Move her files," Pyong-ho said. "I already restricted access." "Not enough. Remove anything with my authorization from the HR chain. That will create gaps. Then fill them." "With what?" "Use the foreign document issue. Say the delay came from marriage verification. Say her employment was voluntary. Say the elevator access was a building-wide clearance update." De Kyung's voice steadied now that instructions had arrived. "And her fall?" "Pregnancy-related balance loss." She reported the denied elevator access 3 times. Then those reports were misfiled. Another silence. Then De Kyung asked, "And if he orders an internal review?" Pyong-ho watched a ship move slowly across the harbor. "Then we give him a review that finds confusion, not theft." But Eong-gyu did not ask for HR's version first. That was their mistake. By 4 o'clock, he had locked himself inside his private office with security footage, archived directives, payroll files, and the original memorial order he had signed after Woram's death. His assistant, a nervous man named Min Seo-jun, stood near the door with 2 tablets and the expression of someone realizing he had been employed inside a crime scene. "Why is the compensation still marked pending?" Eong-gyu asked. Seo-jun swallowed. "The file notes cite foreign marriage verification and sensitive contract review." "Who approved pending status?" "Operations and HR." "Names." Seo-jun hesitated. Eong-gyu looked up. The hesitation died immediately. Kong Pyong-ho and Yong De Kyung. Eong-gyu leaned back slowly. Family and procedure. 2 of the most common hiding places for betrayal. He opened the memorial directive. His own signature sat at the bottom. Full widow compensation. Private housing. Medical coverage. Maternity protection if applicable. Direct oversight by executive office.
No departmental delay. No departmental delay.
He read the line twice. Then he opened the security clip from the emergency stairwell. Neria appeared on screen, 5 months pregnant, carrying 2 archive boxes because someone had denied her elevator access. She moved carefully, 1 step at a time, her hand on the railing. Halfway down, her left foot slipped. She fell out of frame. The boxes burst open. For 6 minutes, the stairwell remained empty. Eong-gyu did not replay the video. He simply sat there, staring at the frozen image of the woman on the floor, and felt something colder than anger move through him.
Guilt.
He had believed his order was protection. But an order without oversight was only a sentence powerful men said to feel finished. He looked at Worm's photograph on the memorial file. A loyal man smiling faintly in uniform, unaware that after saving his boss, his pregnant widow would be forced down stairwells by people using policy as a weapon. Eong-gyu closed the file. Then he gave his next order. Bring Kong Pyong-ho and Yeom De-kyung to conference room 3.
No assistants. No phones.
No warning. Seo-jun bowed quickly. Yes, Chairman. And find Dr. Song. Yes, sir. Eong-gyu stood, adjusting his cuffs with terrifying calm. 1 hour earlier, Neria Kalu had apologized for being slow. Now the man she apologized to understood the truth. She had never been the slow one. Everyone else had simply moved too quickly past her pain. Conference room 3 had no ocean view. That was why Cha Eong-gyu chose it. The executive office had sunlight, skyline, marble, and all the expensive decorations that allowed guilty people to feel important while lying. Conference room 3 had gray walls, a black table, one camera in the corner, and glass so dark the people inside could only see their own reflections. Eong-gyu sat at the head of the table with Worm's memorial directive open in front of him. Across from him sat Kong Pyong-ho and Yeom De-kyung. Neither had been given time to prepare. That was obvious. Pyong-ho's smile arrived too quickly and sat too loosely on his face. De-kyung's hands were folded with professional calm, but one thumb kept rubbing the edge of her ring finger. Eong-gyu noticed both. He noticed everything now. Explain, he said. Pyong-ho leaned back slightly. About the widow's file? Eong-gyu did not blink. About why Jean Worm's pregnant wife is working as an injured secretary 7 months after I ordered full protection. De-kyung spoke first, because HR people often believed language could soften rot. Chairman, Mrs. Jin's case involved several administrative complications. Her marriage documentation crossed jurisdictions, and Mr. Jin's security classification required special review. We offered temporary employment to preserve her medical access during the process. Preserve, Eong-gyu repeated. Yes. He turned one page. Her maternity accommodation request was submitted 3 times.
Dakunes mouth tightened.
There may have been routing delays. Her elevator access was restricted. A building clearance update affected several staff members. She fell down the emergency stairs while carrying archive boxes. Pyong-ho cut in gently. Pregnancy affects balance. We cannot assume. Eong-gyu placed a printed image on the table. Neria on the stairwell landing. One hand gripping the railing. 2 boxes at her feet. Her body captured 1 second before pain took her out of frame. Pyong-ho stopped speaking. Eong-gyu placed another photograph beside it. Jean Worm at his memorial. Dark suit. Quiet eyes. A faint smile that seemed almost embarrassed by honor. He died shielding me from impact, Eong-gyu said. She fell because someone blocked an elevator. De-kyung looked down.
Pyong-go exhaled.
Cousin, I understand the emotional weight of this matter, but the company has procedures. Eong-gyu's eyes lifted. Pyong-ho corrected himself too late. Chairman. Procedures did not revoke an elevator card by themselves. De-kyung said carefully. Access decisions are sometimes automated. Then the machine will be questioned after the people. Silence. Eong-gyu closed the memorial directive. Bring Neria Kalu to my office. De-kyung's head came up sharply. Chairman, with respect, she is medically unstable and emotionally distressed. A direct meeting may confuse. Do not finish that sentence. De-kyung went still. 20 minutes later, Neria entered Eong-gyu's private office. This time, the room was empty.
No executives.
No assistants watching her limp. No whispers waiting to become judgment. Only Eong-gyu standing beside the window, and Dr. Song Hae-rim near a chair with a medical tablet in her hands. Neria paused at the door, uncertain. Come in, Eong-gyu said. She stepped forward carefully. Her limp was worse now that she was tired. Eong-gyu's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice controlled.
Seat.
Neria remained standing. I'm fine, sir. Sit before I mistake your obedience for fear. The sentence startled her. Slowly, she lowered herself into the chair. Dr. Song watched with quiet concern. Eong-yu sat across from Neria, not behind the desk. That mattered. A desk could turn apology into interrogation. He wanted answers, not performance. Why did you never report the injury to my office? Neria's hands folded over her belly. I did report it. To whom?
HR.
3 times. Dr. Song also recommended accommodations. Dr. Song looked at Eong-yu. I submitted a written recommendation after the fall. Reduced walking, full elevator access, no lifting, physical therapy, and rest. Eong-yu's gaze returned to Neria. Why did you keep working? Her lips pressed together. The answer seemed to cost her. Because every time I asked for help, they reminded me help could be withdrawn. The words landed with more force than accusation. Eong-yu leaned back slowly. Neria rushed to soften it, because that was what the office had trained her to do. I don't mean Chairman Cha personally. I know you're busy. They said the claim was complicated and the temporary job kept my medical coverage active. I couldn't risk losing it.
Not now.
Her hand moved over her belly. That small motion made Eong-yu feel the full ugliness of what his company had done. They had not merely delayed payment. They had taught a pregnant widow to believe survival depended on staying useful. He looked at Dr. Song. Her condition. Dr. Song's face remained professional, but her voice carried anger now that someone powerful had finally asked. Pelvic strain and hip trauma aggravated by overwork. She needs rest, supervised physical therapy, and reduced stress. The limp may improve, but not if she continues walking long executive routes, using stairs, and carrying files. Eong-yu looked at Neria. You should never have been carrying files. She gave a small, exhausted smile. No one asks secretaries what they should be carrying. Then they will start. Neria lowered her eyes. Sir, am I being dismissed? The question struck him harder than he expected. Dismissed? If I cannot work fast enough. For a moment, Eong-yu could not speak. He thought of Waram turning the car at the last second. The crushing metal, the rain, the blood on shattered glass. The man who had died without knowing his wife would have to ask whether injury made her disposable. No, he said. You are not being dismissed. She looked at him, uncertain. You're going on immediate paid medical leave. Full salary, private care, secure housing, all expenses covered. Dr. Song will oversee treatment without HR interference. Neria's face changed with disbelief before she could hide it. Chairman Cha, I don't want special treatment. It is not special. His voice dropped. It is late. Her eyes filled, but she blinked the tears back. Eong-yu lowered his head slightly. I gave an order after your husband died. I believed that was enough. It was not. Your apology is not the one owed in this room. Neria's lips trembled. Your apology is heavy, sir, she said quietly. But I have been carrying heavier things. He accepted that. No defense.
No wounded pride.
Only the truth. Then I will not ask you to carry mine, he said. I will correct what carries my name. By nightfall, Doha Marine Group stopped feeling like a company and started feeling like a locked ship being searched cabin by cabin. Access logs were frozen. Payroll files were copied. Elevator records were pulled. HR archives were sealed. Security officers stood outside record storage while internal auditors arrived through the private freight entrance. Phones were collected from anyone connected to the Waram file. Department heads who had spoken loudly at lunch began whispering by dinner. Eong-yu did not raise his voice once. That frightened people more. His private investigator, an older woman named Rei Sanoke, arrived from a security subsidiary no one discussed openly. She had short gray hair, a limp of her own, and eyes that treated excuses as clutter. Within 4 hours, she found the first false note. Within 6, she found the second. By morning, she had enough to make Pyong-ho stop smiling permanently. Neria's compensation had not been delayed because of paperwork. It had been redirected. A widow support payment had been approved, then routed through a fake subcontractor listed as a crisis family services vendor. The vendor had no office. Its listed number connected to a prepaid phone. Its registered director was a cousin of one of Pyong-ho's finance assistants. Medical coverage had technically remained active, but higher-tier maternity support had been blocked by HR classification. Housing assistance had been marked declined by recipient. Neria had never seen the offer. Her elevator access had been manually restricted on the day she fell. The internal memo used to justify it read: temporary floor movement limitation due to pending security review. Authorized, YDK. Operational approval, KPH.
Yeondakyung. Kang Pyongo.
Yeon-gyu read the memo without expression. Then, he opened the stairwell footage again. Only once. Neria appeared on the screen, pregnant and tired, carrying boxes no one should have placed in her arms.
Step. Pause. Step.
Hand on rail. The slip came quickly. The fall was silent on video, which somehow made it worse. Yeon-gyu closed the laptop before the impact left the frame. Ray's son OK watched him. You should know there is more. There always is. Worm's file was used to mask other transfers. Smaller thefts from security death benefits. Injury settlements reduced before reaching families. Not all as severe, but enough to show a pattern. Yeon-gyu looked toward the window. Busan Harbor glittered below, cranes moving like patient metal animals in the dark. His company had protected ships, cargo, routes, and powerful men. But not the people left behind by those who protected him. Names, he said. Ray placed a folder on the desk. Start with these. At noon, Pyong-ho and Dakyung were brought back to conference room 3. This time, the room contained evidence. No water.
No coffee.
No polite folder titles. Just printed emails, bank trails, access logs, medical recommendations, and one large still image from the stairwell placed in the center of the table. Pyong-ho entered first, irritated enough to pretend innocence. Dakyung followed, her face pale beneath perfect makeup. Yeon-gyu waited until they sat. Then he pushed the access memo toward Dakyung. Read the authorization line. She did not touch it. Chairman. Read it. Her mouth opened, then closed. Pyong-ho leaned forward. This has become unnecessarily adversarial. Yeon-gyu placed the fake vendor registration beside the memo. Widow Support Fund. Crisis Family Services Vendor. No office. No staff. Money transferred within 48 hours to an account connected to your assistant's family. Pyong-ho's face hardened. That is an accounting structure. It is theft wearing an invoice. Dakyung whispered. We did not know she would fall. Yeon-gyu turned to her slowly. That was the wrong thing to say. You knew she was pregnant.
Dakyung swallowed.
You knew Dr. Song restricted stairs. No answer. You knew she had asked for elevator access. No answer. You knew she carried files between floors because your department made refusal look like non-cooperation. Dakyung's eyes glistened now, but Yeon-gyu felt no pity for tears arriving only after evidence. Pyong-ho tried again. The woman's case was complicated. She was not legally simple to classify. Yeon-gyu placed Worm's funeral photograph on the table. You classified his loyalty quickly enough when I needed him alive. The room became still. Pyong-ho looked at the photograph, then away. Yeon-gyu's voice lowered. You stole from his widow.
Pyong-ho's miscorrect.
I managed risk. You monetized grief. You think emotion can run a corporation? No, Yeon-gyu said. But neither can rot. He opened the final folder. Effective immediately, both of you are suspended from all duties pending external investigation. All access revoked. All personal devices surrendered. All company accounts frozen for review. Dakyung gripped the table. Chairman Cha, please. My entire career should have taught you not to make a pregnant widow use stairs.
Pyong-ho stood.
Be careful. Family matters do not disappear because you perform outrage. Yeon-gyu rose too. The room seemed to shrink around him. You stopped being family when you turned Worm's death into a payment route.
Pyong-ho's mouth tightened.
For the first time, he looked afraid. Not of punishment, of being seen clearly. Security entered. Dakyung began crying quietly as her phone was taken. Pyong-ho walked out stiff-backed, still performing dignity, because it was the only thing he had left that had not yet been audited. When the door closed, Yeon-gyu remained standing. Ray's son OK spoke from the corner. What do you want done next? Yeon-gyu looked again at Worm's photograph. Everything they buried. he said. Comes up. The executive floor was gathered at 4 o'clock. No one knew exactly why. That made them more honest in their fear. They stood between glass offices and marble walkways, assistants beside directors, junior analysts beside senior managers, security staff lining the edges of the room. The ocean burned gold beyond the windows. Usually at that hour, the floor hummed with calls, printer sounds, and the soft arrogance of people attached to power. Now there was only waiting. Cha Eong-gyu stepped out of his office. He did not stand on a platform. He did not need one. Today, he said, this company corrected a lie. No one moved. Neria Kalu was not a slow secretary. She was not careless. She was not clumsy. She is the widow of Jean Warren, the man who gave his life protecting mine. A visible shock moved through the floor, though many of them had heard rumors by then. Rumor was easier to survive than truth spoken by the chairman. Eong-gyu continued. After his death, I ordered full compensation, housing, medical care, and protection for his family. That order was intercepted, delayed, and used against her. Her benefits were obstructed. Her accommodations were denied. Her elevator access was restricted. Her injury was minimized. Her pain was treated as inconvenience by people who should have known better. Several employees looked down. One assistant covered her mouth. The junior executive, who had smirked when Neria dropped the files, stood white-faced near a desk. Eong-gyu's gaze moved across them. Some of you mocked her. No one breathed. Some of you watched her struggle and said nothing. A young assistant began to cry. I saw her, she whispered before she could stop herself. Every face turned toward her. Her name was Honey Bell, barely 23, new to the company, always frightened of saying the wrong thing to the wrong title. Eong-gyu looked at her. What did you see? Honey wiped her face with shaking fingers. She used to stop near the copy room because the walk from records was too far. She would pretend to organize papers, but she was catching her breath. I wanted to help, but Ms. Yom said not to interfere with performance issues. The confession opened something. Another employee spoke, voice low. I heard people call her clumsy. Another said, I saw her elevator card fail twice. Another, she asked for a chair during late packet prep. Someone said secretary stand. Eong-gyu listened. Each sentence added weight. Not all of them were villains. That was what made the failure worse. Some had been afraid. Some had been careless. Some had been ambitious. Some had simply treated another person's suffering as part of the office scenery. When the voices faded, Eong-gyu said, Fear explains silence. It does not excuse it. The floor went still again. From this hour, injury reports bypass department heads and go to independent medical review. Pregnant employees will receive elevator access, seating rights, reduce lift requirements, and schedule accommodation without HR discretion. Any family of fallen personnel will be handled through executive oversight and external trustee review. Retaliation will end careers. He paused. Not damage them. End them. No one doubted him. Yeom Dae-kyung and Kang Pyong-ho have been suspended. Additional reviews are underway. Anyone who falsifies, deletes, hides, or pressures a witness will answer outside this building. A murmur trembled through the office. Eong-gyu's voice changed then, not softer, more personal. Jean Warren died because he saw danger coming and acted before I could. His widow was harmed because too many people saw danger and waited for permission to care. That sentence did what anger had not. It made shame enter the room. The junior executive, who had smirked earlier, lowered his head until his chin touched his chest. Eong-gyu looked at him. You. The man stiffened. Your name? Assistant Vice Director Moon Jae-chon, sir. You laughed when her files fell. Jae-chon's face strained. Chairman, I did not understand. No, Eong-gyu said. You understood she was struggling. You did not understand she mattered. Jae-chon closed his mouth. You will report to the investigation team and give a statement about everything you saw. After that, you will be reassigned away from executive support, pending review. Yes, sir, he whispered. The announcement ended without applause. It deserved none. People returned to their desks changed, or at least frightened enough to imitate change until truth caught up with them. At the private clinic overlooking the sea, Neria woke from the first deep sleep she had had in months. The room was quiet. Real quiet. Not the tense silence of an office waiting for her to fail. Soft curtains moved slightly near the window. A glass of water sat within reach. Her leg was supported properly. Her belly rested beneath a warm blanket. For a moment, she did not know where she was. Then Dr. Song entered and smiled. You slept 4 hours. Neria blinked. 4. Your body was overdue. Neria tried to sit up. Dr. Song gently stopped her.
No, rest.
That is an instruction, not a suggestion. On the bedside table was an envelope, heavy cream paper, her name written by hand. Neria looked at it with suspicion before opening it. Inside was a letter, not typed, not stamped by HR, written in dark ink. Mrs. Kalu, your husband protected my life. I failed to protect yours. That failure ends now. Your compensation file is being corrected. Your medical care is secured. Your housing will be arranged under your name, not as company leverage. No one will require your gratitude for what should have been done already. When you are ready, Jean Worham's name will be restored properly inside Doha Marine. Not as a line item, not as a liability, as the man whose sacrifice this company survived because of. Until then, rest.
Ja Eonggi.
Neria read the letter twice, then a third time. Her hand moved slowly over her belly. For the first time in months, her apology did not rise automatically to her mouth. Instead, a sob did. Quiet.
Exhausted.
Uncontrolled. Dr. Song sat beside her, but did not touch her until Neria reached for her hand. Outside the clinic window, the Busan Sea shimmered beneath the late afternoon light. Inside, Neria held the letter against her chest and cried for the woman who had been forced to keep walking, the baby she had been trying to protect, and the husband whose name had finally begun returning from the paperwork meant to bury him. The seaside residence was too beautiful for Neria to trust. It sat above a quiet road outside Busan, facing the water with wide windows, pale wood floors, linen curtains, and a balcony where the wind smelled like salt instead of printer ink and office fear. For 3 days she slept. Not perfectly. Pain woke her. The baby shifted. Memories found her in the dark. But still, she slept more than she had in months. Dr. Song visited every morning. A physical therapist came in the afternoon. Meals arrived warm, carefully packed, and labeled with nutritional notes Neria pretended not to find touching. No one told her she was slow. No one asked her to carry anything. No one looked annoyed when she needed time to stand. That was the part that made her cry unexpectedly. Kindness, when delayed too long, could feel suspicious. On the 4th evening, Cha Eon-gyu came. He did not bring photographers. He did not bring a team of executives. He did not arrive with flowers large enough to become a performance. He came with one driver, one security man, and a leather document case. Neria sat in the living room with a blanket over her knees, one hand resting on her belly. Her curls were loose around her shoulders. Without the office blazer and the constant apologies, she looked younger.
Not weak.
Just tired enough of the world to finally see the cost. Eon-gyu stopped near the doorway. May I come in? The question mattered. Neria noticed. Yes. He entered and placed the document case on the low table, then sat across from her instead of beside her. I brought corrected paperwork, he said. Compensation release. Housing deed. Medical coverage guarantee. A trust account for the child. Independent oversight so no department can touch it again. Neria looked at the documents. For months, papers had been weapons pointed at her. Pending. Incomplete. Misfiled. Declined. Under review. Now papers arrived dressed as rescue. She did not reach for them. Eon-gyu saw that. You do not have to sign now. I know. The answer surprised him. Neria looked through the window toward the darkening sea. I spent months being told help was temporary. Conditional. Tied to whether I behaved well enough, worked fast enough, stayed grateful enough. Her hand moved over her belly. So forgive me if I do not immediately trust another stack of paper. You are right not to. That made her turn back to him. He did not defend himself. That was new too. I will have Attorney Han review everything with counsel of your choosing, he said. Not company counsel. Yours. Doa will pay, but you choose. Nereus studied him. You keep trying to correct this with money. His jaw tightened, not with anger at her, but at himself. Money is part of what was stolen.
Yes, she said.
But it is not the only thing. Silence settled between them. Outside, waves struck the rocks below the residence. Eong-gyu lowered his gaze. Tell me what else. Nerea's throat moved. For a moment, the words seemed too large to leave her. Then she said, I want my child to know their father was not just a man who died for someone richer. Eong-gyu went still. He had a laugh, she continued, voice trembling now. A terrible singing voice. He burned rice when he tried to cook and acted like it was a new recipe. He cried when he found out I was pregnant. He wanted to buy yellow curtains because he said babies deserved sunlight even on rainy days. She wiped her cheek angrily. At Doa, he is a memorial photo. A brave employee. A sacrifice. But he was more than the moment he died. Eong-gyu bowed his head. Yes. I want his name restored properly. Not in some quiet HR file. Not as a line item in a compensation claim. I want the company to remember what he loved, not only what he gave. Eong-gyu looked at her then. I will arrange a memorial. No, Nerea said. He paused. I will help design it, she said. I will decide what is said about him. And I will not stand there as your forgiven widow so the company can feel clean. A faint, painful respect entered his face. Agreed. He reached into the document case and removed a small black device. Nerea's breathing changed. What is that? Woram's personal recorder. It was recovered from his locker after the crash. It was logged into security evidence, then archived. I should have found it sooner. Nerea's fingers shook as she took it. There is one unsent file, Eong-gyu said. It is addressed to you. For a while, she could not press play. Then she did. Woram's voice filled the quiet room.
Low. Warm.
A little embarrassed. Neri, if you find this before dinner, do not laugh. I practiced. I wanted to say something properly for once. A broken sound left Nerea's mouth. The recording continued. I keep thinking about the baby. I know it is early. I know we are supposed to be calm, but I already imagine small shoes by the door. I imagine you scolding me because I bought too many blankets. I imagine being late from work and you pretending not to be angry. A pause. Then softer. If I am late coming home, know that your mother was the bravest part of my life. Nerea pressed the recorder to her chest and bent over it as if holding Woram's voice close enough could bring him back. Eong-gyu stood. He did not interrupt her grief. At the door, he stopped. Mrs. Kalu. She looked up through tears. I will not buy your forgiveness. Good, she whispered. He nodded once. I will earn the right to be trusted with my promise. Then he left her with the sea, the documents, and the voice of the man no paperwork could reduce. Kang Pyong-ho had always believed the first rule of survival was movement. If money was found, move blame. If blame was found, move witnesses. If witnesses stood firm, move the story.
So he moved the story.
By Monday morning, whispers spread through Doa Marine faster than official memos. Nerea exaggerated her injury. Nerea trapped the chairman with guilt. Nerea wanted a payout. Nerea was not even properly married under Korean records. The words were careful, cruel, and almost impossible to trace. Almost. A woman arrived at Nerea's seaside residence 2 days later, wearing a soft gray suit and a sympathetic smile. She introduced herself as a private settlement advisor. Nerea did not invite her past the entry hall. I am here to help you leave this situation with dignity, the woman said. Nerea leaned lightly on her cane. Dignity usually does not arrive uninvited. The woman's smile tightened. Chairman Cha feels responsible now. But men like him live in storms. Guilt fades. Public attention moves on. You should secure what you can while the offer is generous. Nerea looked at her carefully. Who sent you? I represent practical interests. That means someone ashamed of naming themselves. The woman opened a folder. There is a private settlement package. Significant money. Housing outside Korea. Confidentiality. No memorial statement. No press appearance. No further claim. Nerea did not touch the folder. My husband died here. Yes, and that is tragic. But you're pregnant. You need peace. No, Neria said quietly. You need my silence and are trying to call it peace. The woman's expression cooled. You may find public attention unkind. I have survived private cruelty. Public attention does not scare me as much. The woman left without the folder being opened. By evening, Yeonggu knew. Ray Sunoke traced the contact through a legal consultant tied to one of Pyong-ho's old shell vendors. The same network that moved stolen widow funds had now tried to purchase the widow's absence. Yeonggu wanted Pyong-ho dragged in immediately. Neria asked him not to. Not yet. They met in the residence study, Dr. Song present as witness, Ray standing near the door. If you arrest the rumor too soon, Neria said, people will only wonder what was hidden. You want to stand in front of them, Yeonggu said. I want Waram to. He understood. The memorial would become the answer. But before that day, the silence began breaking on its own. Dr. Song submitted her full medical report, including the original accommodation recommendations HR ignored. Hani Bell, the young assistant, gave a written statement about the way staff were discouraged from helping Neria. The security technician who recovered the stairwell footage confessed that the original clip had been flagged for deletion after Dakyung requested routine archive cleaning. Then others came. A warehouse widow whose support payment had been reduced. A security guard whose injury claim had vanished after a subcontract transfer. A driver's sister who had been told her brother's death benefit was delayed because of tax review. One by one, people who had been isolated by paperwork discovered they were part of a pattern. Neria listened to their statements from the residents, her hand over her belly, grief deepening into purpose. Yeonggu watched her absorb all of it. You do not have to carry everyone, he said one evening. She looked at him. I know, but she kept reading. He recognized that answer. It was the same kind of loyalty Waram had carried into the rain. Quiet.
Costly.
Stubborn. The night before the memorial, Neria stood on the balcony watching the bridge lights shimmer over the water. Yeonggu joined her at a respectful distance. You can still decide not to speak, he said. She smiled faintly, without looking at him. You are learning how to offer exits. I have had instruction. No, she said. You have had consequences.
He accepted that.
After a long silence, she said, I hid when I was alone. The wind lifted loose curls from her shoulder. I will not hide when I am telling the truth. The memorial was held at Doha Marine's waterfront headquarters, where the sea met steel and glass. It was not arranged like a funeral. Neria refused that. Waram had already been buried. This was not about mourning him again. This was about restoring him. A large portrait stood at the front of the hall, but not the formal memorial photo from 7 months before. Neria chose a different image, Waram laughing awkwardly while holding 2 cups of coffee, one tilted dangerously in his hand, his eyes caught mid-smile. He hated serious photos, she told them. So that was the face the company had to look at. Executives attended. Security teams stood in uniform. Office staff filled the back rows. Some press-linked guests were present, though the event was officially internal. Pyong-ho arrived because men under investigation, often believed absence, looked guilty. Dakyung did not come. Her lawyer advised silence. Cowardice had many professional forms. Yeonggu stood at the podium first. He wore black, but no decoration. No luxury watch visible. No chairman's pin. When he looked across the hall, people straightened. Jean Waram saved my life, he began. That is the truth this company remembered easily. His eyes moved to Neria, seated in the front row. What we failed to remember was that his life did not end with the service he gave me. He left behind a wife, a child on the way, a family that should have been protected without needing to beg, work, limp, or apologize. The room became heavy. Doha Marine failed Neria Kalu. Funds meant for support were obstructed and misused. Medical accommodations were denied. Injury reports were ignored. Silence was rewarded until cruelty learned to sound like policy. Pyong-ho's face hardened in the second row. Yeonggu continued. Today, that structure ends. The Jean Waram Family Protection Fund will provide independent support for families of employees who die or are permanently injured in service. It will not report to HR. It will not report to operations. It will be externally audited and survivor-led. A murmur moved through the hall. Then he stepped back. Neria Kalu will speak for her husband. Neria rose slowly. No one rushed her. That mattered. She walked to the podium with her cane in one hand and her other hand beneath her belly. Her limp was visible. So was her strength. This time, nobody looked away. She stood before them and rested both hands on the podium. For a moment, she looked at Warham's smiling portrait. Then she spoke. My husband made terrible tea. A soft, startled sound moved through the hall. He would boil it too long and pretend bitterness was part of the experience. He sang off-key when he thought I was asleep. He folded towels badly. He believed every baby needed yellow curtains because sunlight should be the first color a child trusts. Several security men lowered their heads. Neria's voice trembled, but did not break. When people call him loyal, they usually mean he died well. But Warham lived well. He loved quietly. He noticed danger quickly. He kept promises even when no one applauded him. She looked across the hall now. So, do not call my husband loyal if you ignore what he loved. The sentence struck harder than accusation. Neria continued. He loved me. He loved our child before he ever held them. If you honor him but let his family be humiliated, then you are not honoring him. You are using him. Yeongyu's face tightened. He deserved that line too. He knew it. Neria turned slightly toward him. Chairman Cha has acknowledged failure. That matters. But acknowledgement is not restoration. Restoration is what happens after the room stops listening. She looked back at the employees. If this fund carries Worm's name, then let it protect people before they learn how to apologize for pain. For several seconds, there was no applause. Only silence. Real silence. Then Honeybell stood. Dr. Song stood after her. One by one, security staff rose. Then, office workers. Then executives with faces full of shame or calculation. It did not matter. They rose anyway. Pyong-ho remained seated until he realized cameras were turning. Then he stood too late. Everyone saw. By evening, his name had been removed from internal authority. By morning, investigators had enough to freeze his accounts. By the end of the week, the story was no longer about a slow pregnant secretary. It was about a stolen widow fund, and a company forced to learn what silence had cost. Jean Solon was born during rain. Not storm rain. Gentle rain. The kind that softened the windows and made the hospital lights glow warm against the glass. Neria held the baby against her chest and cried without shame. Tiny fingers curled against her skin. A small mouth opened in protest at the world, and then settled at the sound of her voice. Hello, Solon, she whispered. Your father would have bought too many blankets. Dr. Song laughed quietly beside the bed. Outside the room, Cha Eong-gyu waited. He did not enter until Neria asked. That, too, had changed. When he stepped inside, he carried no diamonds, no oversized gift, no reporters hidden behind charity language. Only a small velvet case and a framed document wrapped in brown paper. Neria looked tired, radiant, and completely uninterested in ceremony. You may come closer, she said.
He did. Carefully.
The baby slept against her. For a man who had faced knives, guns, prosecutors, rivals, and betrayals, Eong-gyu looked almost frightened by the size of the child. This is Jean Solon, Neria said. His voice lowered. A strong name. A gentle one. He nodded, accepting the correction. He placed the velvet case on the bedside table. Warham service medal. Restored. Not from security archives. From me. Then he unwrapped the frame. It was a copy of the official memorial wall inscription. Jean Warham. Beloved husband. Father. Protector. His loyalty was not only in how he died, but in what he loved and left for us to protect. Neria read it silently. Her eyes filled. This time, Eong-gyu did not apologize again. He had learned that apologies could become another burden if repeated instead of repaired. Neria touched the frame. He would have been embarrassed. Yes, Eong-gyu said. That is why it is accurate. A small laugh escaped her. Months passed. The executive floor changed. not perfectly. No company became humane just because one powerful man felt shame. But systems changed because consequences stayed attached. Pregnant employees had chairs without asking twice. Elevator access was no longer treated as privilege. Injury claims went through independent review. Families of fallen personnel had direct advocates. HR no longer owned silence. Neria returned to Doha Marine 6 months after Solon's birth. Not as a secretary, as director of the Jean Waram Family Protection Fund. Her office was not hidden near records or placed beside people who could ignore her. It sat on the same executive floor where she had once dropped files and apologized for being slow. On her first day, she wore a soft blue suit, her curls pinned back, a silver necklace at her throat, and comfortable shoes chosen without shame. Her limp remained slight, but visible when she grew tired. She no longer tried to disguise it. A young employee rushed toward her near the copy room. Director Kalu, let me. He stopped himself, embarrassed.
I'm sorry.
I assumed. Neria smiled. Ask before helping. But thank you for seeing me. He nodded, relieved and respectful. Across the floor, conversations quieted as she walked. Not because people feared her, because they remembered. Cha Eong-gyu stood near his office door, watching her cross the marble walkway. Months ago, she had crossed that same floor carrying too many files, too much pain, too much fear of being dismissed for moving at the speed her body allowed. This time, she walked slowly. Nobody sighed. Nobody smirked. Nobody called her clumsy. Nobody looked through her. Neria paused near the windows overlooking Busan Harbor. Morning light touched the water. Ships moved below, steady and patient, each one carrying weight the surface did not show. Eong-gyu approached, stopping beside her without crowding. Director Kalu, he said. She looked at him. Chairman Cha. A small smile passed between them. Not romance. Not debt. Something cleaner. Respect. Down the hall, the memorial wall caught the light. Waram's name stood in bronze, permanent now, no longer buried inside compensation files and delayed claims. Eong-gyu looked at it, then at Neria. Then quietly, almost too quietly for anyone else to hear, he said, Waram, I see her now. Neria did hear. Her eyes softened, but she said nothing. She did not need to. She had once apologized for being slow. But the truth was, everyone else had simply been too cruel to stop and see how much pain she was carrying. And now, when Neria Kalu walked through Doha Marine, she walked at her own pace. Not because the world had become gentle. Because she had finally stopped asking cruel people for permission to be human.